Today's episode is sponsored by Methods. Visit them at methodsmachine.com.
Aerospace and defense manufacturing.
Machines and automation.
Additive manufacturing.
Smart manufacturing.
The global manufacturing economy.
Welcome to Advanced Manufacturing Now, the podcast for manufacturing professionals, powered by SME. From the design screen to the shop floor to final assembly, we drive the conversation about making manufacturing smarter by connecting people who are passionate about manufacturing.
Hello and welcome to Advanced Manufacturing Now, the podcast for manufacturing professionals. I'm your host, Steve Plum, Editor-in-Chief for SME Media. Please remember to like and subscribe to our feed at the end of the podcast. So I'm joined today by John Starr and Mike Kaminsky Jr. John is the Marketing Director for Methods Machine Tools. He has more than a decade of experience in global enterprise technology companies, including the last four at Methods. Michael, who began his career mastering CNC machines and manual machining, is now the CEO of Multi-Axis and serves as an advisor to Methods, specializing in the transition from Industry 3.0 technologies to Industry 4.0. Gentlemen, welcome to the program on a chilly and icy day in February, at least in Michigan.
Yes, thank you, Steve. Great to be here.
Great, Steve. Thank you.
So the focus today is on advanced manufacturing, emerging technologies, including AI, and the integration with existing equipment, processes, and people. But before we dive into it, can each of you give us a little bit more information about yourselves and the companies that you're working for and how you're partnering together? John, if you want to start.
Yeah, so Methods Machine Tools, 65-plus-year-old family company, right? A known importer of Japanese and German CNC machine tools with a entire portfolio suite of value-added services, automation, integration, processing, engineering services, et cetera, and of course, technical support. And, Methods, I think, just real quick, right? I mean, Methods, like I said, is a 65-plus-year-old company. And I think where, we fit into this conversation is that historically Methods has always worked and put a concentrated effort on at least staying in the curve, if not ahead of the curve, with emerging technologies that come into the manufacturing sector. And so, this topic, this conversation, I think fits right into our wheelhouse as we enter a new era for manufacturing.
Right. I couldn't agree with you more, John. I'd been around Methods for most of my life, so I think it's best that I provide some context, like how we got to this spot, because I, right out of high school, got right into it. I'll start off with thank you, Steve. My name's Mike Kaminsky, and currently the president of Multi-Axis, working with the Methods Group for over 30 years now. And my family has been involved in the manufacturing since I can remember. I think I can, in some of the stuff that I've worked with you in the past on, I can tell you that, I was involved first in manufacturing back in the 80s, walking into my dad's shop and seeing the walls of paper punch tape and different parts that were spread around, and I was instantly hooked. Day one, I'll tell you that. Right out of high school, I started working in machine shop and taking, CAD classes at a community college. And I really wanted to dive into it right out of high school. And I found my way eventually into Methods Machine Tools. I worked with Methods originally, and my brother at the time introduced me to Methods Machine Tools. When I got into the manufacturing workspace, I was running machines and I wanted to learn more. I was eagerly intrigued by how these things worked. And my brother, at the time worked for Methods. He worked in a certain department with the applications and the turning centers at the time. I said, why don't you check them out? And I decided to give it a shot. And 20 years later, I was headfirst into Methods and loved every minute of it. I can tell you that I worked through different departments from service to applications, and I got involved with the high-end 5-axis and the multitasking turning centers. And this was around 2005, and at the time, Methods was importing some of the first 5-axis machines in the U.S. and advanced multitasking machines. And this really required experts in the field to properly support this technology. This was a niche back then. And today, every shop has to have this technology in order to compete. And it's quite funny when you think about it, how things have changed. With this demand for this advanced technology, we created Multi-Axis. And this allowed Methods to focus on the products that they were importing and distributing, and Multi-Axis worked on the support and the software solutions to help guide customers with these products. And this proved over time a great investment for both Methods and Multi-Axis and their customers. And this has been going on for over 10 years. So 20 years at Methods, branched off into Multi-Axis. And this whole experience helped shape my vision for this integration and AI in the workflow. And over the past year, we've evolved into a developer of advanced AI-driven technologies like our Multi-Axis Intelligence, which is exclusively available through Methods Machine Tools, and it will become available to their customers.
That's a good segue to my next question. Based on your experience and wealth of knowledge, and you mentioned the transition to 5-axis machines and the name of your company itself, Multi-Axis. Where is the industry right now in terms of the transition to Industry 4.0? It varies a lot from company to company, technology to technology. Obviously, the bigger players are a little bit further ahead on the curve, but where are most companies in this transition?
Well, I think today it's pretty clear that we're in an AI race. I think the first to AGI is the clear winner, and that's what is on my side of the fence here. And I like to see this as really a Sputnik 2.0, where we are today in the industry. And AI is accelerating at such an unprecedented pace. And the advancements that are happening on my side are happening weekly. They're not yearly, they're weekly. We cannot even keep up. We're in what I called just the other day, the intelligence era. This is where AI can outperform humans in specific tasks like coding, problem solving, and optimization. I think I would say that I predict that by the next year, 2027, AI could surpass human capabilities in most areas. I think in manufacturing, AI is no longer about automation. I think it's driving smarter decisions, making predictive analytics. It's real-time optimization, and digital twins like we're trying to create through our Multi-Axis Intelligence.
John, have you had similar experiences or?
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about this when we spoke at the Smart Manufacturing Experience back in June. Right. What brought me to Methods and excites me about this new era is, look, manufacturing is not my professional background. As you mentioned, I came from the enterprise technology side, and I started in that industry with large global players about 12, 13 years ago, sort of at what was then the cusp of the digital transformation, right? That sort of that catch-all phrase that became, the term to encapsulate all sorts of embracing of technology. And unlike the professional services vertical, unlike the consumer markets, manufacturing really was not as fast to adopt when we talk about things like, mobile first tools, cloud-based solutions, things like that. And, it was a little bit at the detriment to manufacturing, certainly, right? So there's a lot of catch-up that the manufacturing industry has had to do over the last, even the last 5 years, when other industry verticals might have already had a decade head start, right? So manufacturing playing catch-up is doing it in sort of leaps rather than sort of your traditional crawl, walk, run, right? And that brings us to a really compelling time when we know that labor force, the labor force and the transitioning labor force is putting a lot of pressures on the system in terms of human resources, human capital, right? Just the cost of doing business is going up, right? And that was the argument for automating processes was simply the labor equation and how can I make my parts as cost effective and profitable as possible. So as Mike mentioned, right now we're going to this leap with these new emerging technologies that are accelerating things even faster.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy to think how quick things have changed since February of last year to now. I was just emailing John. I was like, I can't believe I'm emailing and we're talking to you today about this. Like, we saw it when we were standing there in February, at your last one of your shows. We felt it. Like when you're really in the sand and standing in this stuff, you can tell before your customers can tell that we are definitely going through a big transition. And like I said, we are in the intelligence era. We're here to help our customers.
John, you mentioned the workforce shortage and skills gap. Is that really the primary driver, or is it just the advances in the technology, or a little bit of both? What's walking the dog in this case?
Yeah, I mean, I think the labor question, the labor crunch is certainly a factor. But I think the conversation goes bigger in terms of how do I embrace technologies to run a healthier, more profitable business, especially in manufacturing, especially in the job shop sector where profitability is a lot harder to achieve, right? When you take your overhead, your materials overhead, your capital equipment. And I think like every new technological wave that comes through, it's about what and how do I embrace these new technologies to keep my businesses relevant.
We're standing in a Jevons paradox here. So I couldn't agree more, John. Can I add to this? You gotta let me into this one.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I would say that, John is right. I mean, everybody is seeing the workforce challenges, but we're also seeing global competition. We're also seeing sustainability pressures and also economic shifts. These are really big things that are impacting it. You look at countries like China that are developing first-time technologies rather than copying and going right into commercialization. They're innovating. We haven't seen this in over 30 years. This introduces the global competition. And then with the workforce shortage, yes, this is what everybody sees. It's what's all over social media, but there's more to it. I mean, our labor shortages, there's demand to fill the skills gap and enhance productivity. Another reason we created the software tool that we're working with Methods on. I mean, sustainability pressures alone, when you think about the impact of manufacturing and AI, the urgent the urgent action to adopt energy efficient technologies. So, and you guys know, you go back to the first industrial revolution where humans like pumped out about 200 gigatons of carbon. And this is super important. When you think about AI, where we are today, we need to make it more sustainable.
Earlier, you mentioned, for the first time, seeing AI surpass some human capabilities in different areas. The humans are still part of the equation. Are they the humans that are they keeping pace, and what's being done to help them best utilize these technologies? And where are some of the areas that you've really seen an impact, from last year to today in real world applications with real world benefits?
Right off the bat, you got to look at what people see in general, not manufacturing. Everybody's going to be impacted through the medical side first. I think that's a big concern. When you look at it and you want adoption through the whole country, the medical side is going to see a really big impact. On our side, I mean, you just think about it alone. Just look at the industry leaders with these AI models and getting data to customers quicker. Instead of hiring these big firms to gather information, people can do their own due diligence. And, we're at the point where we as developers like Multi-Axis, we need to ensure that these training models are providing accurate information. So, I mean, the job has changed tremendously, but in manufacturing improvements, I would say, it goes back even to February of last year, where we started to see the transition on how we could take current technology and put it to use. This is like the inference of the training model, where you can take something like OpenAI's original model and like, how can we, make things more efficient? And so like partners of ours like Autodesk and CloudNC and Toolpath Labs, they saw like an open window to take their technology and say, how can we like enhance the user experience? And like, we see the skills gap. We want to try to address it the best we can. And they're obviously paving the way. But back in February, they were trying to make their products require less skilled people, use the AI to improve onboarding and have maybe one expert in the room with multiple people improving the efficiency within the company. So I'd say, medical is going to be an adopting side for the whole world. And then in the manufacturing space, it's like, how can we improve what we're currently doing?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, just to add on to that also, is information management, right? And sort of reigniting or sort of reinventing what it means for manufacturers in terms of their documentation, their records, their projects, their orders, historical records, right? We know that in manufacturing we talked about the labor shortage, just sort of this labor crunch, but you also have a lot of transitive labor, right? Operators will, hop from shop to shop based on where the pay is. And that causes a lot of churn and a lot of turnover for a lot of shops. So, methods in multi-axis, what we've been looking at least one lane of sort of the 101, maybe your first foray into adopting some level of AI, because I would say, right, had this conversation with a colleague of mine this morning. It's incumbent for everybody, I think, to at least start somewhere with AI, because it's not to say that everybody's got to do it, but I think even at a human level, at the individual level, the disruption that's coming in every industry sector, in every sort of walk of life, as large and sort of big picture as that sounds, you got to start somewhere. And so when we think about our customers or just manufacturers in general, right, when you have a lot of these transitive workforces, in or out goes a lot of institutional knowledge, customer knowledge, project knowledge. So we think, okay, if I was a shop owner and I had an operator for 6 years and he just left for another opportunity. Well, there's a lot of internal knowledge that just walked out the door. What if there were ways to keep that knowledge, harness that knowledge, and make it not just accessible, but easily accessible to perhaps a backfill replacement, right? If someone could walk in and go, okay, with some keystrokes, let me get a historical record of what this operator's history was so that I know, right? Even on a machine, on a customer order, on a project, an application, etc. Like just making that access to information and making problem solving, resolution, all that stuff, just accelerate the uptake. And when you can do that, think about what you can unlock and the potential of that individual to, have an impact on the business and take out a lot of just that, the laborious effort of information management.
You mentioned, the transitive nature of the workplace these days. And I was wondering, not only from an individual manufacturer standpoint, but from a broader industry perspective, is there the opportunity to use AI in a non-competitive way that helps the industry overall, or is it a little bit too early in the cycle for that?
I think some of that goes to what we spoke about the other day, Mike. I mean, I think there's definitely, that's sort of one lane of, I think, where
you let me jump in here. I got to. So we're all traveling. We're back to traveling, right? We're back to traveling. I'm meeting John, North Carolina. We're discussing exactly what we're talking about here. Like, how can we bring this technology to customers and, help answer those questions you're talking about. I'm sitting next to a 10th grade school teacher, sitting there with a book, 200 pages, obviously a student book, and she's just sitting there highlighting, jotting down. And I look at her at the end of the flight and I go, "You've been doing that for 3 hours on this flight." I was like, do you ever think about, do you always do this? And she's like, "Yes." And I said, what about if you had a tool that could do that in 10 seconds for you and make you more efficient? And she said, "You're taking away my job." And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm making you more efficient. You have to have a little bit different view on this." and how much more time it's going to free up. And it's just like that. Just, that is something immediately, today, people can start doing is improving their wasted time. That's all we got is time. And if you want to waste it doing that stuff, go right ahead. But we're at that transition where people aren't riding horses anymore; they're driving cars. Like you're going to see you're doing it right now, probably in your phones, and you don't even realize it. But yes, there's one example.
So just to play devil's advocate for a second, I think I know the answer here, but we've all been around long enough to have seen our fair share of buzzwords and acronyms come and go, and the hype cycle, the overhype. What makes this different this time around, and what are some of the challenges in implementing AI and other advanced technologies?
What are the challenges? I guess, you have to look at, so let's talk about it from like the business side. So the problem is obviously legacy systems play a big role in this, and the transition to this phase with integrating this. Many of the companies that are pretty big companies, they developed their internal systems before IoT and then before cloud computing and AI. So there's I think some of the small to medium-sized businesses will have an easier transition into this technology than these big enterprise companies, simply because of that legacy system. They can't change it, or they can, and it's going to be extremely difficult to integrate it in these platforms. And I got to say this, John, don't curse me out, but data is the new gold. This is it. These legacy systems stored data in proprietary formats and static databases, and then not easily accessible to newer systems. This is a big struggle that these big companies are going to have. And we're really trying to address a lot of these solutions from the small to medium-sized business, which is really going to be able to take advantage of this stuff really quickly. The enterprise, these big companies, there's going to be a transition simply because that we're focusing on data. We hope that, that the small to medium-sized businesses can excel very quickly in this, and that will really produce an adoption that is going to speed up everything. I really think this is a big difference to all the technology we've had.
Steve, you asked why is this real and buzzwords and all that. I mean, going back to when digital transformation, the concept of it really started to take off, right? If we think about how data was created and stored, say 15 years ago, it was on premises. You have a server and storage room. All your data was there, right? And the more data you created, well, put more servers and storage into your on-premises data center. Then the cloud, and then there was all this buzz. Oh, cloud computing. Is it real? Is it a thing, right? And then we saw the large enterprise cloud providers just take off in the 2010s, right? Google, Amazon, Microsoft with Azure. And all of a sudden the data started moving into the cloud. And so the volume of data that could be held grew exponentially, and data grew exponentially. And you go back 15 years, data kind of grew almost in gigabytes, right? And then it started growing in terabytes, and now it's growing in, zettabytes, petabytes, whatever it's called. So it's always sort of been at the foundation of all these technology waves has always been, how do I access my data? How do I rationalize it? And how do I use it towards improving my business?
And protect it. Can't forget that one. Got to protect it. A lot of people have a big concern of why they won't adopt it, because they do not want to introduce their data into a cloud-based environment.
And so now with where we are, I should also say AI is not a net new thing that all of a sudden came on the scene in 23, right? There has been aspects of artificial intelligence and machine learning going back a decade. But what has now happened is that it's become more accessible to the average consumer, right? I can use ChatGPT to just learn about anything, right? I'm using AI in a way that still was always kind of there, but now it's become the barrier to entry into using it is so much lower. And now the barrier to entry for businesses is coming down. And so that is creating the imperative. And with all this data that is out there, we think about our customer base from the method side, but all the data that gets created in your applications that you are designing, all the data that comes out of your machine when it's operating, right? How can we, and I think that will eventually come, or if it's not already here, is how do I use artificial intelligence to understand things like my machine health, my application performance, all of that, right? On top of, hey, how do I just make my workforce smarter and more productive? And using this data to really look into the future so I can better map a course for my business.
I also think a lot of people are waiting for this AGI, and I think this is really played over way too much because we're in this AI race. Everybody's waiting for AGI before they adopt it, which is really the wrong. You got to get into it now. We need to use the current stuff we've been working on, we've put so much energy into, and allow companies like ours to really shape it around that business so that they can take advantage of it today.
But John, you mentioned the AI and ML are not new, but people have been using different aspects of it for a while, and continue to implement it. But it's not just a case of implementation. You have to do it smartly in some respect. How do companies go about that? It's not, it's not that easy to just plug and play.
No, it's not. And I mean, as we continue to move forward together with methods in multi-axis, I mean, that is, that's the nut to crack, especially with, I think, smaller and medium businesses, right? Like, make it real for them. And, I think, where do they begin? I mean, I don't know, Mike. You're the expert here on that. I'll let you sort of dive into where.
I think there is a fear, for one. There is still a fear of people. There's a cultural resistance that stems about job displacement and the skepticism about ROI and an investment in something like this. It is true that anyone who is currently developing software and AI understands that if a job does not require emotion or reasoning, an AI agent can perform the task more effectively and efficiently. This opens up opportunities for companies to streamline their processes and to hire talent in areas where they previously relied on experts. For one, like, I see an opportunity there. It's sad to see that, the Mike Kaminskis and the Johns are like trying to change in reins here. But honestly, I think we have to have a different perspective here. Like, take the CAD/CAM industry, for example, along with the partners that I currently have, like Autodesk, CloudNC, Two-Path Labs, and Infinite Form. They're utilizing AI to handle mundane tasks, bringing us closer to a finished product. So instead of eliminating the jobs, AI is accelerating the process. And it's enabling these companies to hire new employees with less specialized skills to fill these gaps. We can do this today. I think our job right now is to show this and to convince people that social media is really, it's our news today. It's our news outlet. Whether we like it or not, the CBS, the ABCs, it is all social media right now. This is where we get our news. And depending on what platform you use, it is very confusing where this technology is going. But if you look at just the partners of mine, where we see customers taking advantage of this today is where we're all working together to come to a solution instead of trying to, do it all ourselves. We know that we're not experts in these fields. And then AI is the same way. You can't have one AI that can do everything. You're going to have experts in just the AI side. You're going to have an AI that's really experienced at taking notes. You're going to have one that's really good at cleaning up your emails. You're going to have one that's, it's just think of it as like your autocorrect in Microsoft Word, where it suggests the next word. AI is really good at predicting the next token. What it's really not good at is going backwards. It's really good at going forward. So as long as we can steer it and influence AI, customers can use it really effectively today, and they got to get off social media. It's very confusing. It's even confusing to me as a designer, but go ahead.
Let's think back to like sort of the birth or sort of the arrival of industrial automation, right? The job displacement question. I mean, it still is a question we hear and sort of the fear that's out there, right? And Steve, we talked about this back at SMX is like, where do you start? You got to start somewhere, right? Is the best utilization of your operator's time to pick and place material? Of course it's not, right? Now, how do you, so Methods as a company, we've been building automation for 20 plus years. We have solutions to help shops get started, right? Basic collaborative system. And then we can help customers sort of move up the maturity chain into more complex automation systems, right? With AI, these emerging technology, it's sort of the same logic, right? Where, you're going to have this maturity curve across industries and in manufacturing, right? You're going to have your if you look, I forget the modeling of it, but right, your bell curve of leaders and laggards and all that, right? Like that's going to take time, I think, to play out in the manufacturing sector, but the imperative is still there to start somewhere. If it's documentation management, if it's your CAD CAM process, to Mike's point, right? It's not about replacing talent or not ever needing human talent. It's about accelerating that process. And I will say, just going back to just the workforce stuff real quick, right? If we're, there's a lot of needed and good focus on how do we change the perception of manufacturing? How can we shift this perception of manufacturing as a dirty job site, an unsafe job site? And I use these terms even though listeners may go, whoa, hey, that's not how we operate. It's not. But when I've gone to our open houses, I've had high school educators say to me, well, my biggest challenge is not my students. It's the parents. It's the parents who think that manufacturing is an unsafe, dirty environment. And so embracing these tools, embracing AI and automation and all that, right? Like if we're going to bring a younger workforce that is digital native, grew up with every mobile device, has now grown up with some form of artificial intelligence, and you're trying to attract talent and you don't have anything like that in place, you're gonna fault on being able to attract talent, because people coming into the workforce now, again, whether they're on a manufacturing floor or sitting in a consultancy behind a desk, they're expecting some level of this technology.
Right. And John, I got to add to that because, in order for it's just like anything, you can't really, in order to get the adoption, you have to show your own personal pain points being addressed with it. This is really hard for me to understand. I want software out there. I want people using it. But honestly, you have to lead by example. So just Methods alone, under the hood here, let's talk about it. Every company has a pain point. And just like John said, you're going to get new blood in here. They're going to expect these tools here. They're going to say, I can't do anything without these tools here. They're going to need it. It's going to be every day. It's going to be like when I started working, we didn't have computers. We had a pen and a paper. And when we did time studies, we had to use our head. And now we've become more efficient. We rely on these tools. Like if we were to go to the applications group in Methods and say, give me a time study in 20 minutes, the person's going to say, I need more time because take away all my tools. I need more time because I got to add this all up. And then there's one adoption. We've improved that process. The same thing's going to happen with AI. And obviously there's a lot of bad, there's a lot of good. You tell a couple lies and you become a liar, but you might have 100 truths. The idea here is we want to add efficiency. So with Methods as an example, we see that there is a change of reins, and we can cry all we want, but it's happening worldwide. And what we need to do is lead by example. And number one, we need to support our customers. Their pain point is obvious. Ours is supporting them. And we can take an advantage of an AI tool immediately just by getting information to our on-call service line immediately so that a customer's time is not wasted. They can call up. Our service line could have instant access to data, proprietary data that will get the information to the user's hand. We're not digging through cabinets, looking through books. We're not finding that stuff. We could have new people in these positions, and we don't have to worry about having that skill level we can just use this tool to help guide them. Basically, that's what we want to do, guide them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the service example, just real quick, Steve, sorry. The service example is a great example, right? If one of our service desk folks can resolve a customer pain point in a matter of seconds, minutes, which otherwise might have taken half an hour. Okay, now if that service desk representative, in the quote unquote old world was maybe handling, let's call it 8 cases a day of relatively average service requests, right? Now, if they're able to do 16 in half the time, that's not to say, well, this individual did it in half the time, so we only need him or her 4 hours a day rather than 8. No, we still need that person 8 hours a day, but maybe that person can spend 4 hours thinking on new programs, new customer experience opportunities, right? New service solutions. And so that's a great example of how you can unlock new potential by making existing work easier.
I agree. Yeah, we got to use it all together. We can't just preach it. We all need to use it. We're all using it. I use it to create it.
So, Mike, earlier you were talking about news and AI being the future of all news, and recently you guys were in the news with the partnership that you announced with the new multi-access intelligence AI application. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what it means to your customers and helping them manage pain points?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about a couple of things first. We can see that a lot of people are having a hard time adopting this, and simply because it's an investment upfront. Even though you have companies like OpenAI, you've heard of DeepSeek. And when you just look at the cost comparison, it's very hard to stay in a U.S. environment, right? What our goal is to ensure customers that we're working with our country's best. And our focus is on protecting their data through whatever means is necessary. And my goal is to get small to medium-sized businesses into this technology at a very, very cost-effective price and address pain points at the same time. So multi-access intelligence is currently being used internally at Methods Machine Tools. We do believe as a group that we need to address pain points internally first, and the adoption will be much better accepted because our salesmen will see improvement. Our service group will see improvements. It's not going to be just like, give me the software and let me use it. We want to address pain points personally, and we think this will transition into customers. And Methods, I want to take the current training data to date. And I think I said this a little bit earlier. We are in a big AI race. Everybody's waiting for AGI. I'm not. I'm trying to take what we currently have, which we've put a lot of energy in, and put the training to work and guide the AI to ensure fairness, accuracy, and inclusivity. And our goal is to do this in a manufacturing environment.
So, John, the system's being kind of beta tested, at least the initial rollout at Methods. Can you share some initial insights and benefits you've seen?
Sure. So just going back from when we made the announcement, like mid-January, right? It was an announcement really crystallizing our intention and our strategic plan to bring this to market. I can't get too into the metrics right now, but I mean, that's why we really honed in on the service desk, right? Is to do this right, we know that, look, the announcement was just sort of our starting point, or putting our flag in the ground. Now we're doing the hard work, rolling up our sleeves to understand, let's put it into some real world application to understand time to resolution for service calls, right? How do we use data privately and securely? How can we ingest more data to understand and really rationalize and harmonize a single source of truth, say, for our service desk? And we're already starting to look at like, well, how could it be applied to our applications department? How could it be applied to our parts department, right? And, from there, we're looking at, okay, now we're going to start looking externally and how we can partner with customers to roll it out and get them using it. I will say it's all been received internally from our team in a very positive and intrigued and exciting manner. And I think that's for a few reasons. It's not to say, hey, because we announced this internally, everybody's got to love it. That's not it. What it is, I think, for us internally is what I said at the top, is that for our team members, they see us continuing to evolve, to continue to push the envelope from the technology side. It's what Methods has always been good at. Mike mentioned 5-axis machining earlier. Methods was one of the, if not the first, and Mike, well, I can date Mike by saying it, right? But like Methods was really one of the first U.S. importers to lean heavily into 5-axis machining when a lot of times people were sort of shy from it because of how much complexity it brought into the system. Then it became automation and robots, and now it's becoming AI. And so we're really leaning on our own internal legacy of staying ahead of the curve. And that's really what I think is energizing team members. And now that we're starting to deploy it internally and we're starting to see how it can improve our own internal collaboration and decision-making and access to information, it's really starting to make it real. And as the next leap off would be external, right? Putting it into customer hands. And I should say feedback, privacy, all of that is table stakes through this whole process, because privacy and data security has to be at the root of everything.
So what does that broader rollout look like, and how quickly are people going to be able to put it to the test?
From the software side, we want it out immediately, right? But realistically, manufacturing in general is not so agile. It's very hard to make a change and to change or disrupt a chain of events. And due diligence is really being done through Methods, and this is why Methods is successful. They want to see the benefits internally. They want to address pain points. And you know what the great thing is? We're already making changes because we're addressing needs of Methods. And I think it's just going to be that much better of a product by the time it enters the customer's hands. Our goal is really to help out the small to medium-sized businesses. And like I just said, we want to address pain points immediately and secure their data, however they plan to use it. That's our real goal.
I mean, you asked about a timeline. I think without getting too aggressive, I think if we were to have this same conversation a year from now, we're talking about it's in the hands of our customers, they're operational, and it's now another feather in our portfolio of a value-added service that we can offer together with multi-axis that just strengthens the customer relationship, the customer experience, and the quality that Methods can deliver for our customers.
I agree with you, John. We might get to a point where we actually start to feel comfortable, where we might want to start working with some of our best customers and start to get it in their hands early. Because we control this product, we can actually make it a useful product in the manufacturing. We might have overlooked something that maybe a customer has, and now's the time to address it because we are so agile in the development. So,
it definitely helps to have close partnerships like Methods and multi-axis, but also with other key customers where you can really work with them during the early stages of a rollout and tweak it as necessary and make it even better.
Yeah, it's not going to be possible without working with valuable customers who want to get in, want to get in the deep end of the pool with us, right, and see how it can improve their business.
So speaking of timelines, we've come to the end of our timeline today, but thank you very much for joining us. Great conversation, very, very interesting, and looking forward to learning more about everything AI and what's next.
Thank you, Steve. It's been great.
Yes, we're excited. Thank you, Steve.
So, Michael, people want to learn more about Multiaxis, where can they turn to?
Yeah, you can go to multiaxis.llc or multiaxisintelligence.com, or you could just look on Method's website. We got a good page on there, and that's probably the best way to go, because if you're really interested in the product, we'll start talking to you.
I think Mike jumped the gun there, but John, what about Methods?
Yeah, methodsmachine.com, right? It's, as Mike mentioned, it's on our webpage, right? And I should also just, you're going to see more, I think, software as an offering become more present on our website. We rolled out, again, with Multiaxis in 24, an AI tool add-on for our RoboDrill product to accelerate, post-processing, right? So this collaboration has been ongoing. It's been ongoing between Methods and Multiaxis for a long time. And methodsmachine.com. You'll see all the machines, but you're going to start seeing a whole lot of other forward-looking content and options and opportunities.
All right. Well, thanks again, guys. And to learn more about the latest manufacturing trends and hear more podcasts, visit us at advancedmanufacturing.org. And don't forget to like and subscribe.